The energy industry under fire. I'm Ed Kelly, editor of the Oklahoman. With me from Washington is Chris Castile, chief of the Oklahoman's Washington Bureau and a frequent contributor here on News OK TV. Chris, as you know, both the Senate and the House have legislation that tries to fix the blame for the current spike in gasoline prices. Can we assume it's all because the members are hearing from their constituents loud and clear from back home?
Oh, absolutely. Probably more on this issue than any other issue right now. I mean, what's happening with energy prices is having a real impact on people and a real hardship on many people, and probably, especially in rural states like Oklahoma, where people have no choice but to drive long distances to work in some cases, and probably a lot of people are making hard choices right now about where their money goes when they're having to spend this much money on gasoline. And both sides up here, Democrats and Republicans, a lot of people would probably just call it posturing, but both are offering their own solutions to a problem. None of them are actually short-term solutions. Everybody kind of admits there's no silver bullet to deal with this immediately, but both are trying to position themselves probably for this fall's elections, Ed.
One of those so-called solutions, Chris, is that Senate Republicans beat back an attempt by the Democratic majority to impose another windfall profits tax on oil producers. Certainly Oklahomans remember the last time there was a windfall profits tax, don't they?
I would assume so, Ed. That tax was imposed in 1980, probably one of the most complex taxes ever levied in the country. And of course, it wound up bringing in far less money than projected. Of course, oil prices plummeted in the early 80s, and really no companies after that really even had to pay the tax, but they still were faced with the administrative burden of the tax, which was really quite burdensome on many companies. In the meantime, the IRS had to make sure that they were all complying with it. And I guess in 1988, when you were up here as a bureau chief of the Washington Bureau, they eventually repealed that tax. But it was widely considered a failure when they did repeal it, and it may be somewhat surprising that they're talking about it again.
Right. Yet on the other hand, there does appear to be some movement this week toward opening up some drilling for oil and natural gas in some spots like the Outer Continental Shelf that have been off limits for a long time. Given the likelihood of opposition, though, from environmentalists on this issue, do you think such efforts will be successful?
It's hard to see that. In fact, there was a vote today, Ed, in a House Appropriations Subcommittee on an amendment that would have opened up OCS areas off the Pacific and Atlantic coast. It failed on a 9-6 vote. So if it can't even get out of committee, it's hard to see it gaining support on the floor. But next year is another year. Maybe there will be serious debate on this issue. It's really hard to say at this point. But one of the other points that's being made by some of the people up here in this debate about opening up more areas is how many acres are under lease right now that no energy is being produced from. Apparently there's 46 million acres of federal land under lease, 31 million of it, there's no activity on it. And that includes some land in the North Slope of Alaska, which we know is productive. And the chairman of the Senate Indian Affairs Committee last week came out with a report showing that basically BIA and Bureau of Indian Affairs Incompetence is keeping a lot of drilling going on from going on in North Dakota on Indian land up there, where there's approximately an estimate of 4 billion barrels of oil available there, and they just can't get the leases through. So, it's a combination maybe of not being able to complete work on leases already granted before they start talking about opening up other areas.
Okay, Chris, thanks. Stay here in News OK for more coverage of this continuing story.